Scuderia Ferrari is the most successful and oldest team in Formula One history. Present since 1950 with likely the largest fan base in motorsports due to its immense legacy. However, the most successful team in the history of Formula One could reach 17 years without winning a single championship by 2025. And it's not due to a lack of budget or talent, because great names have come through these years and still haven't achieved the success they've been chasing for so long. Rather, the lack of glory has been a series of situations that we will try to explain in this video, trying to reach the conclusion of why Ferrari hasn't won any championships since 2008. What has happened during all these years and what hopes do they have for the future? If they can break that curse that has followed them since that last Constructors' Championship won at the Interlagos circuit anytime soon? So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this analysis of Scuderia Ferrari and their lack of success in recent years. To begin with this analysis, it's necessary to understand the legacy that the Italian team carries. And why is it so serious that they've gone so many years without winning in Formula One? They are a team that has been in Formula One since 1950 and remains active today. They are the most decorated team, with more victories, drivers' titles, and constructors' titles than any other team. This legacy has granted them a prestigious position with numerous privileges. Ferrari's team, the prancing horse, receives more money than almost any other team on the grid, regardless of their championship position. Thanks to a historical bonus they receive for being the longest standing and most successful team in Formula One history, they are the only team on the grid with the right to veto Formula One rules they consider harmful. And taking all these conditions into account, along with the legacy that this organization carries, many believe Ferrari is a team obliged to win and succeed in the sport. However, there's a massive factor that few people consider. And the truth is, Ferrari has always been a team used to long streaks without success in the big circus. From 1965 to 1975, it took a decade for Niki Lauda to bring glory back to Italy. Previously, their longest historical winless streak was from 1983 to 1999. 16 years passed before Ferrari's Constructors' Championship victory, initiating the Ferrari and Schumacher era. And now, from 2008 until today, they haven't been able to win any titles. Long winless periods are not new for Ferrari, the prancing horse. It's been a common occurrence throughout the team's history. However, for this analysis, we'll focus on the events from 2008 until now. And our story begins precisely in the year 2006. Ferrari was coming off its greatest historic streak, dominating Formula One from 1999 until 2004. Since the beginning of the 90s. In 1996, after years of not winning in Formula One, Ferrari abandoned its nationalist philosophy and began a restructuring. They would not look for the best Italian talent available, but rather the best talent available anywhere in the world, as long as it could help bring Ferrari to the historical top. In that restructuring, they hired Jean Todt as team principal, a Frenchman who was the director of Peugeot's sports division, with whom they won the Dakar Rally, World Rally Championship, and prestigious 24 Hours of Le Mans. Ross Brawn was hired as technical director, who had been the leader of Benetton during their glory years in 94 and 95. And Ronnie Brent, from South Africa, who served as chief designer during all that glorious era of Ferrari, and as a driver they brought in the world champion of 1994 and 1995, Michael Schumacher. While none of these pillars were Italian, each was a genius in their respective fields. And they were the ones who led the team to achieve all the successes they had, from that 1996 until the year 2006. However, since 2005, regulatory changes have impacted their competitiveness. In 2006, Schumacher and Ferrari battled Renault and Alonso for the title, but ultimately lost. But after that 2006, the pillars of the monumental success they had started to fall one by one. Schumacher retired after the 2006 season, departing the team. Ross Brawn, the technical chief, and Ronnie Bryant left the organization. Jean Todt, the only remaining member, would also depart in 2007. Obviously, the departure of such important people would force an internal restructuring. But despite the success that this formula had achieved by bringing the best available talents to the team, they decided to return to their nationalist philosophy and that the main positions of power in the team would once again be, if possible, for people from Italy. Although the 2007 and 2008 cars had successful foundations that allowed the team to win the Constructors and Drivers' Championships in 2007, it is precisely at this point where one of the reasons begins for which Ferrari cannot find success or balance. Something we will call the Ferrari cycle. I will explain what this Ferrari cycle consists of. It's about hiring new staff and restructuring within Formula One. After a few years having a competitive car, then losing the titles for completely stupid reasons. Then later firing that staff and then hiring new staff again, starting a new restructuring, and doing exactly the same thing throughout all these years. After the four key figures who led Ferrari to success departed, the local Stefano Domenicali arrived as the new team principal for the Italian team and the Italian Noaldo Costa as the new technical director. However, the 2009 car disappointed. The 2010 car was competitive though. In the final race at the Abu Dhabi circuit, Ferrari lost the driver's title Alonso was competing for because of a major strategy mistake. Following the fiasco in the disastrous 2011 car, Costa was removed from his position. Ferrari eliminated the technical director position, giving the role to Pat Fry, Corrado Lanzone and Luca Mammoni. Eventually, they were replaced by Nicholas Tombasis, returning member Rory Bryant and James Allison. However, in that 2012 they lost the title again when Alonso had a huge points lead halfway through the season. Their technical department never matched the level of their rivals. And even though Alonso did wonders with that car, which wasn't bad, but wasn't as competitive as the Red Bull, they ended up losing the title. The car also underperformed in 2013. But the definitive collapse of this working group would come in 2014 when they designed the F14T, the famous car that both oversteered and understeered at the same time. A completely disastrous car, because apart from being technically bad, its engine, which debuted the hybrid era of Formula One, was never up to the level of its biggest rivals, and Ferrari didn't win anything at all that year. 2014. This was the final straw for the Italian team, prompting them to restructure themselves more aggressively. Luca di Montesemolo, then president of Ferrari, resigned and was replaced by Sergio Marchionne. In 2016, Stefano Domenicali was replaced by Mauricio Arribabene in his position. And Fernando Alonso left the team, so his replacement ended up being Sebastian Vettel, the four-time world champion. The restructuring would bring another significant change in 2016. The philosophy of having a technical department without a single technical chief was discarded in favor of appointing one person, who was Italian again, and you must know him very well. It was Mattia Binotto who became the technical director. Following a restructuring period in 2015 and 2016, the team prepared for the new 2017 car regulations. In that year, Ferrari was already in a position to have a competitive car with which to challenge Mercedes, who had been the absolute dominator in those first 3 years of the hybrid era of Formula One. But once again, they ended up losing the titles in pretty stupid ways. In 2017, 2 consecutive reliability failures and an accident at the Singapore Grand Prix destroyed Sebastian Vettel's chances of winning the crown. And in 2018, Vettel's driving errors, poor team strategies, and a bad development race towards the end of 2018. Once more, they ruined his championship hopes when Ferrari was competitive early in the season. In fact, they even led both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships at one point. And obviously, after this failure, guess what? A new restructuring would come after being mocked and criticized by the Italian press and Ferrari fans all over the world. The restructuring began with the presidency of Ferrari, although somewhat unintentionally, since Sergio Marchionne died of cancer in 2018 and his position was taken by John Elkann. Mauricio Arribabene was dismissed as team principal and replaced by Mattia Binotto. This situation was a bombshell due to an internal power struggle between Arribabene and Binotto. When Binotto replaced Arribabene, he prevailed in their internal dispute. In a relationship that had been very problematic over all these years, where their egos weighed heavily within the team. In fact, this situation with the Italian ego has always been a burden for Ferrari. I could tell you many similar anecdotes, but there's one that I think stands out from the rest. And it's that in the first decade of Formula, when some teams started to mount the engine in the rear of the car, Enzo Ferrari, the creator and owner of the brand, became obsessed with front-mounted engines due to the performance they gave single-seaters. Basically because he said that the horses had to pull the car and not the car pull the horses? That's why, for several years, Ferrari refused to mount the engines in the rear, even though it was proven that this gave a performance advantage. Later, when Formula One's aerodynamic revolution started, Enzo Ferrari himself mocked this situation, saying that aerodynamics was for people who didn't know how to build engines. Ben and Binotto faced a similar situation where their egos burdened the team, causing internal conflict that Binotto won. This first decade without Ferrari success can be summed up as technical weaknesses within Ferrari that didn't allow them to keep up with their rivals. Continuous changes disrupted the team's order and balance, a deficient strategic department, and an internal power struggle. All of these factors led to Vettel burning out in 2018 like a ticking time bomb. Mauricio Ribabene removed from his position. Harsh criticism from the press and mockery from Formula One fans all over the world, forcing another staff restructuring. And it was in 2019 when the era of Mattia Binotto began. But this stage of Ferrari is remembered as one of the most disastrous of this entire winless era in Formula One. His leadership was mediocre. During his tenure, the 2019 illegal engine scandal occurred. Although consequences were never publicized, their car was nerfed in 2020 and 2021. They also failed to secure a single victory during that period. What about the team's approach after the punishment imposed due to the illegal engine situation? They chose to disregard the 2021 season and concentrate on 2022, marking the start of the ground effect era. And finally, after all this mess, right in that year, at the start of the season, they had the best car, but somehow Ferrari found a way to self-destruct.
Stay out, stay out!
What happened? What happened? Box.
2022 was marred by poor strategies, weak leadership from Binotto, and a lack of reliability that the team failed to address. The fastest car on the grid. And once again, a technical department that was not up to the level of its rivals, quickly being surpassed by the people from Red Bull. In the 2022 development war that dominated the season, Ferrari had at least one car to fight these people at the beginning of the season. After a disappointing 2022, the Ferrari cycle repeated itself once more. Binotto was replaced as team principal by Frédéric Vasseur, bringing renewed promise to the team. After internal restructuring in 2023, they finally seemed to have the car to compete in 2024. McLaren ultimately claimed the Constructors' Championship despite their close competition. However, Ferrari chose to completely overhaul their winning car's structure for 2024, transforming the SF25 into an entirely different vehicle. And in the span of one winter, they went from being the first or second strongest team, depending on the circuit, to being the fourth car on the grid behind McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull. The current disaster at Ferrari is so severe, despite having the statistically greatest driver in history. But the car hasn't allowed him or Charles Leclerc to compete for significant achievements in 2025. It's already being said that they're facing engine delays for 2026. They fear being less competitive than rivals, among other concerns. This offers little hope to Ferrari fans worldwide, and many are starting to fear why Ferrari will continue with its drought of success for a long time to come. In conclusion, Ferrari is a team that lives off its legacy but is far from what it once was and represented. The reason why they have gone so many years without winning is a clear lack of leadership. In addition, they have spent a lifetime being behind other rivals in the technical department and constant restructurings that do not allow for balance as a team. And that is reflected in the car. Restructurings that have happened because Ferrari has been unable to put the right people in the right positions, regardless of their nationality. Because of power struggles and an ideology that over all these years has been more of a burden than a virtue. A philosophy based on nationalism and Italian pride, which have made it so that Ferrari can find stability and the right people in their positions to help maintain a solid pace in all of Ferrari's departments. From the technical side to the strategies, so that this Italian team can return to its former glory. And meanwhile, as that huge lack of leadership and character continues within the Italian ranks, neither Lewis Hamilton nor Frédéric Vasseur nor the reincarnation of Senna will be able to change this situation. It's fair to say Ferrari has been working on this in recent years. It's true that there has been progress, but from what we've seen, it seems that Ferrari still has a lot of work to do before it stops living off its old glories and starts behaving like a team worthy of its legacy. Thank you.